At 3 a.m., I realized something that honestly scared me. Not because of the headlines screaming "end times," but because I realized we've been looking in the wrong place this whole time. The real countdown? It's not flashing across news feeds. It's been quietly sitting in a story most people scroll past. A story about untrained hands finishing something that should have taken years. For years, I treated Nehemiah like a basic leadership book. Resilience, teamwork, never quit, solid advice. But I was staring at the frame while the real masterpiece stayed completely hidden. Inside that short rebuilding window sits a precise layout that quietly connects ancient gates to the final week the prophets could barely describe. That honestly messed with me a little when I first saw it. Historians still shake their heads. Enemies called it impossible. But the Hebrew text points to something sharper, a divine trigger placed in plain sight. And that exact number matters more than you think. Don't miss this. Most people completely miss this moment. Numbers in Scripture carry real weight. When this one starts to unlock, the whole story begins to breathe differently. Picture the scene. Walls in rubble for over a century. Gates burned, stones scattered. The builders? Not professionals, just priests, merchants, goldsmiths, and perfume makers. People no one would ever pick. Yet they pulled it off in a window that still defies logic. Close your eyes with me. A city broken for generations, ruins everywhere. And the ones who showed up weren't soldiers or engineers. They were everyday people with zero construction experience. And here's what nobody talks about. Nehemiah chapter 3 lists every name, every family, every trade, and exactly which broken section they claimed. God remembered every single detail. That kind of personal attention still hits me hard. Engineers today say this project should have taken years just to clear the rubble, but it didn't. It was finished in a time frame that shouldn't even be possible. The moment the last gate shut, the world kept scrolling, but something shifted in the unseen realm. That wasn't the end of an old story. It was the first quiet tick of a much larger design. Daniel had already received the blueprint. Everything was quietly converging, and it all started with these unexpected builders in a broken city. I had to sit back for a second when I saw how it all lined up. This next part changed everything for me. That short window created a divine rhythm carved into history. You can almost feel centuries pressing forward into today. So we're not just looking at old history. This is unfolding in real time, built on the same persistence most of us already carry inside. That's bigger than it sounds. And what I'm about to show you here, almost nobody talks about, even people who study this for years. That short rebuilding window isn't a standalone miracle. It's a miniature reflection of the 70 weeks Daniel described, pointing toward the final movements of history. I know this sounds deep, but this is where it becomes personal. Imagine a small clock perfectly nested inside a much larger one. When I first saw how they lined up, I had to set my Bible down and just breathe. The Hebrew calendar tracks covenant promises, not just seasons. Align the exact completion day and you see a clear projection straight to the Messiah's arrival, exactly as Daniel foretold. Here's the turning point. The key word is moed, appointed time. Not approximate, appointed. God doesn't miss his appointments. And that truth brings real calm to the quiet tension we all carry. That specific count becomes a hidden key. Placed next to Daniel's 70 weeks, it quietly unlocks the starting line of the final 7-year period. Now, watch what happens next. And this changes the entire picture. Suddenly, the countdown stops feeling distant. It starts feeling close, pressing right now. Don't just admire the story from a distance. Step closer. Feel the design God set in motion. It's whispering to everyone who's actually paying attention. And that's where it lands. Step back from the 2026 noise for a moment. Look at the bigger picture. Every major global tension keeps circling back to one place: Jerusalem. Empires rise and fall. Headlines change hourly. But Jerusalem stays steady, the timepiece the prophets kept pointing to. A city with less than 1 million people holding the attention of every major power. That's not ordinary politics. That's prophecy unfolding while most of us are scrolling. Nehemiah restored 10 gates, each carrying deep meaning. Sheep Gate, Fish Gate, Valley Gate, Water Gate. These weren't random. They were built-in markers. And then something unexpected shows up. When you lay those ancient meanings over today's headlines, the connections aren't poetic, they're structural. Same story, same author, different chapter. God's way is consistent. The physical comes first, then the spiritual. The wall had to stand before the word could flow freely. We're living right after that physical step. Which means the next movement is spiritual, and it's drawing nearer than most realize. Let that sink in for a second. Every serious student eventually hits the same question, that long silence between Daniel's 69th and 70th week, nearly 2,000 years. Why the gap? Some call it delay, others call it mercy. But what if it's intentional breathing room built into the larger design? This next part matters. The short rebuilding window quietly offers a bridge, helping explain both the length and purpose of that gap. When you place that window against Daniel's larger layout, the silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling purposeful. It's the kind of discovery that makes you stop and rethink everything. The entire timeline suddenly feels complete. I didn't expect that when I first dug in. Look again at the opposition Nehemiah faced. Mockery, threats, betrayal from within. It feels eerily familiar in our time. The faces have changed, but the design hasn't. And that suggests the outcome could be closer than we realize. Let's pull everything together. The impossible rebuilding window, the mathematical connection, the convergence around Jerusalem. Each piece stands out, but together they form something very hard to dismiss. This isn't locked in the past anymore. It feels like a living design pressing into our present moment. Daniel gave clear markers, a covenant confirmed with many, restored worship, and a desecration that changes everything. These are actual signposts. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. When you set that short window beside Daniel's roadmap, the distance may be shorter than we've assumed. I'm not setting dates. The real point is awareness and readiness. When the signs sharpen, the question moves from if to are you prepared? So the biggest question left standing is this: where will you stand when the final clock starts moving? Nehemiah's team didn't stand around debating. They built, one hand working, the other ready, focused, awake, committed. That same invitation is right in front of us today. Build your faith. Sharpen your discernment. Stand steady, not driven by fear, but anchored in the confidence that the God who finished the impossible before will finish what He promised. And if you've never fully surrendered your life to the one who holds the entire design, this moment is your invitation. Not later, right now. Because in the end, this was never just about a timeline. It was about you, where you stand, what you trust, and whether you're ready when everything shifts.